Have you ever wondered what the world would be like if animals, like humans, didn't have mating seasons? Or if humans had fixed mating seasons like animals, how would the world change? In reality, one of the most significant differences between humans and animals is the absence of a mating season. We can engage in certain activities anytime and anywhere, as long as it doesn't violate laws or morals. So why don't humans have a mating season? Why is there such a significant difference between human and animal sexual behavior? For instance, humans never engage in such activities in public, and humans have evolved many features solely for sexual pleasure. Let's explore human sexual evolution from a biological perspective. What's the difference between human sexual behavior and that of animals? In fact, human sexual behavior is quite peculiar compared to animals. Most animals don't engage in pair bonding or jointly raising offspring. Males typically don't provide care or even raise their offspring. Their only contribution is some sperm. In some social mammals, sexual behavior is often conducted openly in front of other members of the group. For example, in monkeys, the alpha male can mate with females in front of all family members at any time, while other males can only watch longingly. Most male mammals are alerted during the female's ovulation through visual, olfactory, or auditory cues that signal fertility. Once the male receives the signal, he quickly prepares for mating. Moreover, mammals don't have menopause. Most remain fertile throughout their lives. Humans, on the other hand, mostly form long-term pair bonds, and 90% of sexual activity between partners is for pleasure, not reproduction. Without a mating season, both men and women experience multiple sexual urges daily. One study recorded the sexual urges of 300 men and women. The highest male reported 388 urges in one day, with an average of 18, while the highest female reported 140, averaging 10 per day. The man who had 388 urges thought about sex roughly 25 times per hour while awake. Impressive. When it comes to raising offspring, the typical arrangement is that both parents contribute. Men primarily provide financial and physical support, while women are more involved in child rearing. Couples usually live with others, but they don't mate openly in front of them. Human ovulation is also well hidden. Even women themselves can't always tell when they're ovulating, and there are no obvious external signs. Finally, all women around the age of 50 enter menopause, losing their ability to reproduce entirely. So why do humans have such unique sexual behaviors? To answer that, we need to understand the history of human sexual evolution. The species closest to us genetically are African great apes and bonobos, with only a 1.6% difference in DNA. 3 key points separate humans from other apes: bipedalism, brain evolution, and, importantly, sexual behavior. Humans are one of the most sexually driven primates. We have concealed ovulation, the ability to engage in sexual activities anytime, and a remarkable skill for sexual entertainment. In Darwin's Origin of Species, evolution is driven primarily by natural selection, where structural changes in plants and animals give individuals an advantage in survival and reproduction. How does sexual behavior aid our survival? It's because we need to grow a brain far superior to that of other animals to compensate for our body's lack of adaptation to hunting. Human children require the longest childhood to allow their brains to develop adequately. The human brain doesn't fully mature until about 25 years old, which explains why we sometimes act foolishly. It's just that our brains aren't fully developed yet. With children so weak and dependent, one person alone can't raise them, necessitating both parents to care for the child. The division of labor becomes clear. The man hunts, while the woman remains loyal, and both form stable partnerships. But how do we create the most stable partnerships? Humans have developed numerous strategies. The first is making sex more passionate. If women couldn't engage in sex during the child-rearing period, it would spell disaster for their offspring. From the current perspective of human sexual behavior, sex is clearly not solely for reproduction, but for mutual reward and strengthening the pair bond. To make sex more enjoyable, our skin, hands, our lobes, nipples, and areas around the genitals are filled with sensitive nerve endings that respond to touch. Our outwardly protruding lips are also unique. Other animals rarely have such lips. In chimpanzees, kissing signifies hostility, but in humans, kissing is a symbol of intimacy and affection. The nerve endings in our lips are incredibly sensitive, and if you kiss someone every day, even a strained relationship can be softened by physical affection. Additionally, women's breasts are unique. While other primates also produce sufficient milk to raise offspring, they don't develop the distinct hemispherical shape of human breasts. This appears to be another example of a sexual signal. The ongoing evolution of human sexual behavior is all about strengthening and maintaining relationships with our partners. So, far from being a sign of decadence, our sexual nature is biologically based and aligned with evolutionary requirements, making it a healthy and essential aspect of life. Humans' pursuit of sex demonstrates their desires, and as long as it's within moral and legal boundaries, it's entirely right to pursue it. But remember, it must align with morality and law. Now, how important is sex in marriage? It's fair to say that if a couple goes a month without sex, doesn't kiss every day, and speaks with disdain, the relationship will likely end soon. The solution is simple: increase the frequency of sex and kiss daily. If your relationship is in need of improvement, consider having more sex with your partner. Humans have gone to great lengths to maintain partnerships. Even during pregnancy, women can still engage in sexual activity. The author of Guns, Germs, and Steel, Jared Diamond, recounts his experiences with some indigenous New Guinea friends who believe that sex and semen during pregnancy help the fetus develop better. Surprise! The second key point in human sexual evolution is concealed ovulation. Why don't humans display ovulation signs like animals, and why can't women even tell when they're ovulating? Imagine a scenario in ancient human tribes where a woman goes into heat, and the men all notice it. Suddenly, no one wants to hunt. The tribe's combat ability would drop to zero. Not only would they stop hunting, but armed with stone axes, males could engage in violent conflicts over mating rights, similar to fights between male animals. Inconsistent estrous cycles could lead to ongoing turmoil in the tribe. This would be highly detrimental to human survival. However, by concealing ovulation, males are forced into permanent unions, as they can't be certain that the offspring are their own. Frequent mating ensures that their genes are passed on. This arrangement benefits both partners. Some biologists also speculate that the lack of mating seasons ensures that males share food with females after a hunt. In the world of chimpanzees, females in estrus are more likely to receive food, while those not in heat have a much lower chance of getting a share. Additionally, biologists, through research on human testicles and sperm, have discovered some abnormalities. The first finding is that human male testicles are very, very large. How large, you ask? Relative to body weight, human male testicles are far larger than those of gorillas or orangutans. A male gorilla's testicles account for 0.018% of its body weight, and a male orangutan's account for 0.048%. In comparison, human male testicles account for 0.079% of body weight, or about 60% larger than those of a male orangutan and more than 4 times larger than a male gorilla's. Larger testicles are usually the result of intense sperm competition. If a female has had sexual relations with 2 or more men during the same period, their sperm coexist, and sperm competition puts selective pressure on males. As a result, they are forced to produce a large amount of sperm to ensure that during ejaculation, there is a vast number of sperm, giving them a better chance of success. Next, there's the matter of the female orgasm. Biologists believe that if a woman gets up immediately after that kind of activity, a large portion of the semen will be lost due to gravity. In this case, any physiological reaction that encourages the female body to stay horizontal is beneficial. Female orgasms tend to make one feel tired, which serves a dual purpose. Human evolutionary history is full of such intricate details, and I truly admire it. Now that we understand sexual evolution, how do humans choose their sexual partners? This can be divided into long-term and temporary relationships. When men and women interact with the goal of a long-term relationship, their requirements are different. However, when the goal is a temporary, short-term relationship, the requirements shift immediately. An experiment conducted on a university campus in Florida asked an attractive stranger to approach someone and say, "I find you very attractive. Would you like to sleep with me?" Women, when faced with such a proposition, tend to feel offended or insulted. However, men often feel flattered, with only a few expressing concern, such as suspecting the other person might have a disease like AIDS and was seeking revenge on society. But most men are happy to agree. This experiment was also conducted in France and Denmark. In France, when women were propositioned, only 3% agreed to have sex with a stranger provided the man was extremely attractive, the type of man who must be very handsome. If the man was average-looking, the success rate was 0. In contrast, 83% of French men were willing to have sex with an attractive stranger, and 60% were willing even if the woman was average-looking. Why do men have such a high tolerance for casual sex compared to women? This is something we know well. Humans reproduce internally, and the reproductive burden on women is incredibly heavy. Women endure 9 months of pregnancy, nursing, and a great deal of child-rearing. For men, the minimum contribution is just sperm. So from a male reproductive strategy perspective, having relationships with more partners maximizes the spread of his genes. However, in species with external reproduction, both males and females exhibit the same promiscuous tendencies, as neither party needs to care for the embryos after they are produced. Thus, both sides adopted the more, the better strategy. In other words, the tolerance for casual sex is rooted in reproductive strategy, which is the underlying reason. In choosing short-term partners, men exhibit a high degree of inconsistency. A study of college students revealed that, for short-term relationships, men prefer women aged 16 to 28 as partners, whereas women prefer men between 18 and 22. In short-term relationships, men relax their standards significantly. Factors like attractiveness, athleticism, education, generosity, justice, humor, and so on. Men dislike conservative or low libido women in short-term relationships, which is exactly the opposite of their long-term criteria. In short-term relationships, men place more value on sexual experience. Due to differing reproductive strategies, women don't gain much from short-term relationships. As a result, they often test men during short-term encounters: are they serious about me, or just after a fling? Women, because of the risks associated with long-term relationships, need to constantly assess whether a partner is reliable, whether he can handle pressure, or whether he'll abandon them. Therefore, even in short-term relationships, because of the possibility that it could evolve into marriage, women set equally high standards for both short-term and long-term partners. For men, there's an interesting effect known as the Coolidge effect, which refers to the tendency for males to renew their sexual desire when a new female appears. This drives males' impulse to mate with multiple females. This effect is also observed in other male animals, such as male rats, rams, bulls, and roosters. For most couples, the longer they're married, the less frequently they engage in sexual activity. This isn't because they've turned from lovers into mere companions, but because of the Coolidge effect. It also explains why pornography is so widespread, because the novelty and high stimulation of different faces can constantly reset the sexual threshold. But this is also a trap, leading to a loss of control in real life. High thresholds for stimulation can lead to emotional lows, causing mood swings like a roller coaster. The dangers of this are another topic altogether. So, based on the Coolidge effect, you can keep things fresh by mixing it up, using your imagination to keep your marriage and love alive. At the end of this video, let's discuss what constitutes proper human sexual behavior from the perspective of sexual strategy. In the evolution of human sexuality, genetic mutations or recombinations in an individual can enhance or weaken their parenting instincts. For example, a man might completely neglect his offspring, being highly irresponsible. He constantly engages with different women, resulting in pregnancies, and then runs off over and over again. Morally speaking, this behavior is unquestionably that of a bad guy. In the short term, across 1 or 2 generations, his genes appear to have a higher survival rate since he has more children. It seems like he's winning and living carefreely. But when women are left to raise children alone, it creates both financial and emotional burdens. We all know how expensive it is to raise a child nowadays, and doing it alone is extremely tough. In such households, children grow up without fatherly love and without material support. They may develop a fear of marriage and having children, as they see other kids with complete families and better living conditions, while they have very little. As these children grow up, they may be much more cautious about having children themselves, trying to avoid repeating the hardship they experienced. Many people even choose not to have children at all. All it takes is one irresponsible father or husband for a family to fall into poverty. Often, it takes 2 generations of effort to recover to a normal level. So over 3 or 4 generations, the irresponsible bad guy gene fades away due to the mental and financial struggles of the offspring. In contrast, children born into happy families, receiving enough love and material support, are more likely to get married and have children. With the help of their families, they can buy homes and cars, reducing the stress on young people. When we compare the pressures faced by these 2 groups, the difference is staggering. This is why, in today's society, monogamy and joint child-rearing are the mainstream, because genetics has provided the answer. It is the optimal solution in terms of inheritance. Unfortunately, irresponsible fathers will never fully disappear, and their children will continue to be at a disadvantage. These children suffer greatly, and their genes are less likely to be passed on compared to those from happy families. This is why behaviors that benefit males are not always advantageous to females. Sometimes, they can even be harmful. To all the viewers watching this video, as you grow into adults, when it comes to marriage, children, and sexuality, I urge you to be more cautious. Find more reliable partners, take protective measures, and really think about what you want before deciding whether or not to have children. For those of you who are married or in relationships with children, know that as long as parents love their child, even if their material life is lacking, the child will feel that love. As long as they know their parents love them, their hearts won't be filled with resentment. They will grow up well, and their positive childhood memories will help them overcome the challenges they face later in life. That's all for today's video. My view is this: it's okay to pursue sex, but when it comes to having children, you must be incredibly careful.